Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 14th meeting of the Onteora School Board. We are doing a discussion meeting this evening. We have a tobacco policy in place. There is no smoking within 100 feet of any school building. Please rise for the pledge. Board Clerk, will you please call roll?
Trustee Smith?
Here.
Trustee Jared?
Here.
Trustee Mitchell-Morrell?
Here.
Trustee Jerome?
Here.
Trustee Goodrich?
Here.
Trustee Knudsen?
Here.
Trustee Bishop?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Item 2.01 is our continued capital project discussion. We do have our friends here tonight. I can't see you all from where I'm sitting. From CPL, our architects and our engineer, and our construction manager from Schoolhouse Construction. We made some tentative decisions at the last board meeting to really try to pare down our capital project propositions and bonds to make it something that could be seen as more affordable by the community. We did some work during the week and sent our Google spreadsheet to the folks that I just mentioned, and they've come back with some information for us. So I think we'll start with you guys presenting to us, and then we'll open it up for questions from the board.
And I just wanted to ask, since a lot of people will be watching this on YouTube at home, can you try to make sure you talk very close to the mic? Everybody who speaks, thank you.
Sure. All right, so I believe in front of you guys you've got some updated items. We did take your comments, questions, compiled them into what was Proposition 1, Proposition 2. We had a little bit of updated pricing in some of those, so I think we talked last time. I had some air conditioning items I had to follow through on with some refrigerant changes and things like that. That's been incorporated into here. I had a little bit of work with CPL to take a look at the retaining wall and some of that was working itself around Bennett and what was part of Bennett's classroom edition versus what was the gym edition. I think we're to a point now we've got that fairly well resolved to where our costs should be accurate for those items. And what you're seeing now is the reflection of that. That said, are there any additional questions on any of those items from your discussions?
Trustee Jared and Trustee Mitchell-Morrell, were you putting your hand up?
I think I was.
Okay, all right, you're next.
My first question is, what sort of question, like a specific question about something included in one of these line items, is that the most helpful question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, in the write-up about each item, there was a little chunk about the nurse's office,
Yep.
about it coming down a little bit, the price that we kind of had it at.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to know, would that include any kind of office or private space for the nurse? Because that's some feedback from some parents I've gotten, is that like the nurse doesn't have a private area to be in to take a call from a parent to discuss sensitive medical issues. So I was just wondering if that was included in the idea of a renovated nurse's office, or if that would change things significantly, if that.
That would definitely not change things significantly, and that specific item, maybe it wasn't fully planned out, but we typically do like a square footage takeoff, and CJ can elaborate on the cost aspect of that in a second here. But ultimately, none of this has been really truly fully designed at a certain point. So let's say in the future, if a capital project does pass, then we would do a design process and meet with the actual nurse and the nurse's staff and the admin to really understand the push and pull and everything, and then go through a couple different options, really. So if that's the need, then we'll satisfy the need, but that kind of happens a little later on in the process.
Can I just make a suggestion for trustees and also for our professionals? We just realized that what we're looking at, nobody at home can see.
Fair.
And so
see that
it's
now.
going to be confusing for people to be able to kind of keep up with the conversation. So, yeah, just maybe it would be a good idea to just really list through what is on Proposition 1.
I can
And
do
then
that.
maybe we could take questions on Proposition 1,
That's fine.
and then next go on to Proposition 2 and take questions on Proposition 2.
Okay, so I will read through Proposition 1, and I'll just do each item, and then I'll just do a total, or would you like a total for each item?
I think it would be good to, have the price of each item before we go to the full total.
Happy to do it. Yep. So Proposition 1, Bennett Elementary School Classroom Edition. It's 8 classrooms, 1 art room, nurses space, music room, bathrooms, exterior bathrooms, and a library expansion at $16,516,000. New boiler room, which is a replacement of the boilers in the boiler room, is $1,626,500. The drop-off loop modifications over where the addition will go, so that there's a bus loop parent drop-off, $3,804,250. To do that portion of the work, we have to move the existing playground, which means we're going to move it up to the upper parking lot on the Bennett site. To do that work is $1,096,125. Replace below slab sanitary in the front hallway at Bennett, $282,813. Remediate drainage around the Bennett addition and address some of the pieces of where the drop-off loop is $312,194. New Bennett electrical service and the relocation of that service from behind where the existing gym and cafeteria are, $1,317,250. In that same area is relocating the fuel tank or fuel oil tank, which is also $1,317,250. And then replacement of the culvert across Route 28. $614,875. The total of Proposition 1, $26,887,257.
Thank
Do
you,
we-
CJ.
Yeah.
And I just want to be specific about the number of classrooms that we're adding now, because we realized this week that we were including the art room and part of that conversation, and there's been a correction.
Yeah, so in the addition, there's actually 8 classrooms and 1 art room, so a total of 9 if you include the art room. Because originally the thought was just to expand the existing art room in the existing building, which would take over 1 other classroom. So originally it started out as a 10 classroom addition, but when the decision was made to move the art classroom to the addition, you're gaining back 2 classrooms in the existing building. So the number just kind of changes a little bit.
Thank you. So any questions on all the items that were listed in Proposition 1? Trustee Goodrich?
Okay, I'll start with the fuel tank relocation. So I know we had talked about, I thought we said we only needed to move that if we're building the new gym. So is that still the case, or?
Hi there. So we had this fuel tank replacement on our to-do list for several years now. It's vintage, 1987. And, you know, basically, when we look at underground fuel storage, we think 25 to 30 years is pushing it.
If you could talk a little closer to the mic.
We actually bid this work already once as a bid alternate to a previous site package when we did the RTU handler for the gym at Bennett. And at the time and the budget number, it was too high to do the work. But regardless of any improvements, we need to replace those tanks. So it's more of like a BCS nuts and bolts item if you look at it that way.
Yeah. So this is really a building condition survey or building condition, survey replacement. So this is not a relocation, this is a replacement?
Well, they're underground now, and we were going to go above ground. And originally, we were thinking of putting them above ground in the general area where they are underground, but that would take up space for any sort of future development. So we're picking a new spot away from everything that gives the district the flexibility in the future to do other options.
You are going to replace it, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I think we should say it's a replacement, not a relocation. Relocation and replacement, yeah. So, the New York Route 28 stormwater culvert crossing. I guess this is another one of those building condition survey, maintenance items, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a blurred line. For good or bad, we had a catastrophic failure of the catch basin over the winter. We were in talks with DOT relative to this project or a nuts and bolts type project for a BCS item, and they were very cooperative and very beneficial to the district. As it turns out, the majority of the work that was required for that fell on the DOT right away and was at no cost to the district. We've held this line item. The verbiage could change a little, but we still need to upgrade the drainage outside, like the district side, away from the DOT catch basin. So there's still some lower drainage that has to be redesigned or reworked, or it hasn't been contemplated yet. So if you look at that as a line item placeholder for now until we can get into it. But the good news is the majority of the work, like crossing 28 and the main catch basin that's in the bus loop, the DOT replaced all that during the winter as an emergency project.
So for the people at home, Proposition 1 includes more than just Bennett upgrades. I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that. So the Bennett new electric service and relocation, I guess that would be needed because of all the HVAC that's going in the new rooms. Is that correct?
Yes. Sorry, yes. That and the mechanical work, and then just the overall footprint growth.
Have we figured out what the HVAC system is yet?
In terms of its exact...
The new classrooms, yeah.
I want to say it's a ducted overhead, like, rooftop unit. That includes air conditioning.
Okay.
Trustee Goodrich, I was just going to interrupt you just to give others a chance and come back to you. Okay, okay. Trustee Mitchell-Morel, then Trustee Jared, then Trustee Jerome.
This wasn't my question from before, which I'm still saving because it's a more general question. Now we're going over line items, correct? Okay, just wondering, purely curious, how come the drop-off loop is so expensive?
I'd have to dig into the line items. I'm sorry. I don't know that I can answer that right this second, other than it just being its location, and I could dig back through the line items and give you a better answer. I'm sorry.
I mean, isn't it partially because it's an entirely new,
Yes,
site on the property?
Exactly. I could speak broadly in that right now it's a play grass field. There's an embankment there. And what we need to do is basically do a lot of regrading. There may be some retaining walls, There's a lot of pavement drainage that goes to it, and then whatever we're doing, we're adding impervious surface, so there's a whole stormwater management component to that. In fact, there's a stormwater management component to basically a lot of the new impervious surfaces that we're creating that, you know, we'll handle on site, but that would include rooftops and additional, wherever it's grass and we're making it pavement, there's additional underground design features that have to be accommodated. So that all adds up quickly.
I just have a question about the fuel tank replacement and relocation and the stormwater culvert crossing, because those things sounded important. If Proposition 1 were not to pass, then I think we can't put this up again for a year. Is that true? Then are we going to be okay with those, with the fuel tank? Because I kind of hear you saying not ideal.
You'll be okay, excuse me, with the stormwater piece. I think that because the DOT took care of the major failure part, the other, like on the district side of that drainage, has been there, and you know, it's not. We investigated and videoed it. I forget how many years ago now. Time flies, but I think I would say, I don't know, 6 years ago, and it wasn't that bad. But it's one of those cases of a stitch in time saves 9. Especially because it's the bus loop and heavy duty traffic. Relative to the tanks, I can't answer that. It's you know, it could be fine for another year, it could be fine for another 5 years, but I'm just saying industry standard, and you know, when there's a problem with underground tanks, it can lead to a much bigger problem. So it's better to nip it in the bud.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, as we work through Proposition 1 and 2, that if there seems one in Proposition 2 about the same price, that we could maybe consider swapping so that the fuel tank relocation and replacement ended up with the essential work. It might not be possible, but just a thought I have, that's all.
Trustee Jerome, and then Trustee Knutson, and then back to you, Trustee Mitchell-Morel.
I just wanted to sort of set the scene for people who are not as familiar with Bennett. What's the exposure of the front facade? Is that like southern or? In any case, it sits on a hill, and it has a very exposed facade with very old windows, and they are very compromised, and the district very, very inefficient in terms of energy and also the comfort of our students. So all of the things that are listed under the new space take place, and correct me if I'm wrong, on that front facade. And that's where the music rooms are located, that's where the art rooms are located, the security vestibule. So it's really in this initial proposition that will make Bennett capable of absorbing more children. It's really that front facade where the work is happening, and then on the grounds, of course, in these additional items. And I just wanted to make that clear for people who might not be familiar with the building.
Yeah, I think the new space is more, if you're facing from the parking lot, it's on the left, right, where the playground is now, essentially, that side of the building. So that the new vestibule, I think, would be on that side of the building.
Okay, and the windows across the front, though, right?
The windows are, yes, the front facing.
Okay,
yeah.
so stage left, and then the windows on the front.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
The window replacement on Bennett isn't part of Proposition 2.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that if you're watching at home, you can go into our meeting agenda, and now the document that we're looking at, it has been linked, so you can pull it up at home. Just now. Yeah. Trustee Knutson?
So, yeah. So I just wanted to just sort of communicate my understanding of this package, how it makes sense, and can you just fact check me and make sure I'm understanding this correctly? So obviously the 8 classrooms and the new art room, the library, the office, the security vestibule, that's all about expanding Bennett's capacity to bring in new children. And then basically everything else on this list is when we were first putting together this capital project last year, we described as nuts and bolts and necessary things, right? And so the new boiler is a nut and a bolt, right? The drop-off loop to me is about, it came up in the community sessions last year, it's about safety for the kids. What it does is really take vehicular traffic out of the campus during the school day. You know, if the playground is moved up where the teacher parking is now, that you will have children moving through that area, no cars, right? And then things like drainage are just getting the site ready for the next 25 years. It's climate resilience to my thinking, because as we all know, with climate change, we're going to see at times heavier rains than we've seen in the past. Drought and rain, everything gets a little more extreme, right? Now, my question is, so I think there's probably people at home who are really mourning the loss of the new gymnasium, which was $8.5 million, which we have moved down to for some future phase. And the way I think of this is sort of, if you're building a house, these nuts and bolts things that we're doing, like the boiler, like the electric, all the infrastructure that we are building, is sort of like building the foundation of a house. It's sort of like, if that gym came in, if the district and the community decided that they really wanted that gym in a few years, to my mind, we've built the foundation by doing all these nuts and bolts things, that would be a less expensive project, and nothing we're doing here would prevent that from going up at a later date. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that later date could be as soon as May, no? In theory, or no? If this passes, then we can put something up in May? Or is it even possible?
We'd have to see what the community will support. I mean, the thing is, decisions like these are in the community's and the voters'
No,
hands.
you have to wait a year if it doesn't pass. If it does pass, you do not have to wait a year. Just kind of going
Correct.
over the nuts and bolts. Okay.
So I'd like to just confirm there, Mr. Knudsen, that is accurate, and just taking a step back. Sometimes when you do plan these projects, right, when we say nuts and bolts, that really comes from the building condition survey process, which, you know, a lot of us know what that is.
Chris, can you
right?
speak a little closer?
Yep, gotcha. All right, so really the building condition survey process is what starts that nuts and bolts conversation, right? And any good capital project has a good mix and balance between nuts and bolts and the programmatic, right? That's your new classrooms, that's the renovated art room, you know, library expansion, things of that nature. So, you know, we wouldn't be doing our job if there wasn't things like, you know, stormwater, culvert stuff on here, tank relocation, because we got to guide you through the code compliancy and make sure your infrastructure is future ready.
And I think I'll just add that a lot of those items that you mentioned are needed in that process for that addition.
Any other questions on, go ahead, on Prop
Just
2?
my
Prop 1.
original general question, which is just like, what do you guys think of this plan? And do you think there's something we're missing, or is there advice you would give us? Just don't hesitate to tell us.
My side of this, and then I'll pass it to CPL, is I think this is a great plan. Not because, oh, sorry, I feel like I'm yelling at you guys when I hear this, so I just adjust. I apologize, so I'm going to keep yelling at you. All right, one, I think this is a good plan. It addresses the pieces that you need for what sounds like I'm hearing as what's important to you and what's important to your voters. I don't think you're missing anything. I'm sure there are things that we'll find that we'll need to do in addition to this. That's what all my columns for contingency are for. So, I mean, we do our best to hit every piece of things and think through that process. There's definitely going to be things. But I think this addresses for you to get out of the ground and deal with your immediate need very well.
Yeah, That's a great question, and what I just said there about mixing the nuts and bolts with the programmatic, I think the Prop 1 is put together really nicely. It's a good, set of work that's going to get you some things that people can get excited about. A lot of functionality there, and then also a lot of the, again, nuts and bolts infrastructure work. The Prop 2 has a lot of great add-ons, and what's good there is that it gives your community options, right? It gives you an option to say yes or no to that. It gives you an option for everything, but ultimately Prop 2 is a good add-on, and importantly, the future phase of this too, right? Knowing that down the line we still have some options. Unfortunately, the first vote didn't pass, and there were some really exciting things on that initial vote. That doesn't mean they go away. It just, they're on the future phase. We're still planning on it because we still feel that was a good idea back then. So I in a closing statement, I think this is a well put together package that looks like it could be successful.
Any other questions or comments about the projected Proposition 1? Go ahead.
So the second line there, Bennett Additions, new space. I was wondering if we could just clarify that a little bit and just put Bennett K-5 in there, just so everybody knows. This is K-5. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Great idea.
And I think the reason all these propositions make sense and are flowing together is because of all the community forums we had, and the architects, CPL, did a great job putting that design in place. So it's designed so that we can grow into these other future phases, right? We're not going to be building something and then have to tear it down, because by design, we can add to it. Thank you.
Trustee Jared?
In the last meeting, I expressed just concern about not doing the gym expansion in the cafeteria right off the bat. And then the request for information came back from Principal Bono that with 2 physical educators, the current gym gives enough room to continue the program in the same manner that's been since 2007. And that Sally in the kitchen, Sally is the best, stated that she could serve the kids the same way they have for 18 years. So I just wanted to say that out loud, since I was the one that voiced concern around that I was really happy to hear that. And I know those folks, and they take their job seriously, so I trust them.
Thanks for mentioning that in public. That's important. I just want to say one thing, and then we'll move on to more questions. Just keeping in mind that this first proposition, which is $26.8 million, would be a bonded proposition that we would be borrowing the money like a mortgage for that portion of this work. The next portion that we're going to discuss, we will not need to be borrowing any of the money to support that work. So any last questions about Prop 1? Trustee Knutson and then Trustee Mitchell-Morrell.
Yeah, just a quick mention about the library expansion, because I know I've seen questions in the public about what's that about, why do we need to do that? And when we did our Bennett tour, we spoke with the librarian at Bennett, and she specifically mentioned that Woodstock has a very wonderful book collection, and it's really mainly for so that all the kids will have access to all the books that are at Bennett in the Bennett Library. And then, I don't know, I don't want to say all, but we can keep a large number of books that have collected in these 2 elementary schools and display them, because, it's funny. I remember, quick digression, when I read the book Freakonomics many years ago, they had a stat like which kids become lifelong readers, the kids whose parents read to them every night or the kids whose parents have a lot of books in the house. And the counterintuitive answer is it's the kids who have a lot of books in the house, because reading is something that eventually you take over as your own passion, right? And just having access to books is super important to develop lifelong readers. And so the library expansion is not just to have more room to spread out into, but it's actually critical for book storage. Just wanted to mention that.
Oh, yeah. I was just also going to say something publicly that I feel like I've just heard about. And it was just that some people felt like we were adding the athletic stuff, but not the music art stuff. And even last week, maybe it wasn't finalized, but we now are adding an art room and a music room. So just wanted to say we're trying to keep it equal in those respects. Yeah, that was it.
Sorry, Trustee Mitchell-Morel, we're renovating 2 music rooms. Yeah, we're not adding a third. Third is on potentially on the future phase list.
Also, minor clarification, we are technically adding to those 2 rooms just to square their shape off to make them a better acoustical space too. So you're both heading down the right road, just the nomenclature is a challenge in this particular piece. So.
Yeah, it's more just saying, like, we're not ignoring the music art. We're starting, and we're going to keep going. I just was at a party with this guy who works at New Paltz, and they did the bell-to-bell policy with the phones this year, and library usage has gone up 100%. So that's another good reason with the bell-to-bell, we need a bigger library.
All right. Are we comfortable moving on to Prop 2? Okay. Oh, one more comment.
Well, it's not about the list. It's more about, and maybe the financial discussion will come later. It's just, okay. Because I just wanted to hear about, since that we will be bonding for that, and curious to hear how that will work out. But we'll put a pin in that. Okay.
All right. Shall we continue?
Absolutely. All right, Proposition 2. So I'll read down each line item with each cost and then total at the end. So Proposition 2, replace Bennett windows and exterior walls, $5,281,188. Bennett renovate music rooms, $2,897,875. Renovate toilet rooms in the front hallway of Bennett, $772,875. Replace ceilings and lights in classrooms, corridors of front wing of Bennett, $910,125. Renovate 3 high school science classrooms, $3,254,438. Replace existing acid waste lines from science rooms to main sanitary branch, $411,556. Renovate high school nurses suite, or upgrade high school nurses suite, $226,755. Grass sports field improvements for soccer, drainage, baseball, fencing, outfield regrading for field hockey, $1,045,188. And resurfacing the track, $200,000, for a total of $15 million.
Superintendent?
CJ, we had a higher amount in for the nurses' suite upgrade. Did we talk about that today? And somehow Ms. LeClaire and I still managed to put the wrong number in here?
We did have a higher number.
So we have a total of 767,688.
Correct. I don't know why that is. My first thought is that I think it was high school and middle school. So was one of them just for high school?
Oh, we would want both because they're
Okay.
right next to each other. They are a suite.
Okay. Yeah, or is it because part of it went to transfer to capital?
So we have a total of 767,688, and it doesn't all fit into our Proposition 2. So we have allocated $65,000 and $5 in the Proposition 2 with an indication that we could include the difference of $702,683 in the transfer to capital line for the 2026-27 budget. But our total that we identified was $767,688. Could that be the combination of the middle school and high school nurses?
The 707,688 is both the high school and the middle school.
That's why we had that number. So our number is actually that number, but within the proposition, we've allocated 65,000 with the understanding that the rest will be put into the budget in the transfer to capital line,
For May vote.
so that we managed to hit our
Exact
15 million, which matches our projected capital reserve and cash amount.
Questions or comments on Proposition 2? Trustee Jared?
I had some thoughtful reach outs from folks about wondering about the turf field and all of that. And so I just wanted to explain out loud what I think I understand so that you can tell me and everybody if that's correct. So the surface of our track really needs attention. Redoing the track from its foundation makes sense to do if we're going to do a turf field in the future. Those two things made sense to do together. And field lighting, because you're underneath the earth, digging up the whole old track and the ground to put the turf field on top. So it wouldn't make sense to do the whole track from the bottom if we were thinking the community might want to vote for a turf field in the future, because that wouldn't make sense. And it wouldn't make sense to do a turf field and not redo the track from the bottom necessarily. So that's why I think we all thought that since the turf field was 2.3 million and redoing the track from the bottom and the field lights were 1.1, that would be like a nice thing to think about as a community in the future, doing all together instead of doing one piece of it now.
So there's common logic in doing exactly what you said. If you're going to do a turf field, we're basically going to have to hog out the whole center grass area. There's a lot of site disturbance. We wouldn't necessarily want to have a brand new resurfaced just the track, which can be subject to damage during that level of disturbance. I can tell you I've done a level of that disturbance, and it is possible. It's not impossible. It's not necessarily impractical, but it just minimizes risk and its ease of operation, really. So the thing with the track, again, a nuts and bolts item, we met out there with the track person, and he's like, you either got to do something now, which we're carrying a number to do something now, and then if down the road you're going to do something later, you know, that's if we don't do anything now, and you don't do anything down the road, you're replacing everything in the track. So your cost scale just goes up no matter what. So it's a catch-22. I get it, but it's kind of the cards we're dealt, right? It's not impossible to do the track and then go back and do the turf. It's just relative ease and amount of risk.
And just on that topic, so the resurface that we're contemplating, we think would buy us 5 years, 3 to 5 years.
I think you said another 10. I mean, the
Really?
pavement's in good shape. You know, they would just come in and scrape it all off, and, you know, the new coatings that they have today are pretty good.
But if within that 10-year period, the district and the community decided they wanted a turf field, it would make sense at that time to do the.
It would be a decision, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
again, a lot of times when we go the turf route, you start talking about state level competition, you start talking about 8-lane tracks, you start like really blowing the thing up, if you will. And it's a tough footprint that you're in now with that hillside.
Right.
So it could be contemplated down the road, but if it were me, a stitch in time, I know I sound like whoever, but a stitch in time saves nine, and you can do that now and buy time to make the proper decision down the road. And again, it's safety, right? I mean, I think there
Right.
was some vandalism already out there, and there are some spot repairs that could be done, but it's due.
And like Tim said, it's not uncommon to add turf to a pre-existing track. It's something I'm sure you've done several times. I've done even recently. I'm about to do it again, to be quite honest with you. So it happens sometimes.
Other questions about Prop 2? Trustee Goodrich, then Trustee Knutson.
So, I know originally the building condition survey had 5 science classrooms to be renovated. Could the superintendent give us an update on the 3 that we're doing here and the 2 that may be done? Because maybe I've heard from you that we may not need 5. So if you could give us a little bit of an update there.
Sure. So I actually contacted our high school administrator, and what he said was, so we already renovated our chemistry lab. That room is currently used for all chemistry classes. That's room 203. He envisions the 3 proposed renovated labs would be room 204, which currently is used to teach classes such as earth science, biology, and AP environmental. Room 206 is predominantly used for biology, regents, and AP bio classes. And then room 211 is predominantly used for earth and space science, regents, and elective courses. The 2 future labs that we would consider, room 202, which is somewhat underutilized currently, and has some classes but is not used for all periods of the day, and room 209, which is also even more underutilized, used only for 4 periods a day, and may be possible with declining enrollment to even move the classes that are currently housed in that room to other classes in the future. So it's possible to even contemplate renovating just one of those 2 extra rooms, or, you know, depending on where our enrollment is in a few years in the high school, I'm not sure if we will need even both of them. But I think for now, to have 4 very modern renovated rooms will be amazing for our students.
Is there any way we could do 4 in Proposition 2? And then would that, the reason I'm doing this is because you know I love physics. And one of the reasons I ran for the board is when I saw the physics classroom about 5 years ago. And it was bad. It was really bad. And physics was my most important subject in high school.
We could do whatever the board wants, but something has to come out of Proposition 2 if we're going to add another, essentially, $1 million.
Trustee Jared, then Trustee Mitchell-Morrell.
I so love and appreciate your dedication to science, Clark, and I really mean that. I'm so glad that we have an advocate like you on the board, because we all have our spots, and I think science is super important. I do want to raise a sad, uncomfortable feeling that I'm having about the science wing, which is it is in very close proximity to the middle school hallway. And if the proposition fails and 5th grade does move to the middle school area, I would think that the science hallway above the current middle school hallway, which is very quiet, might be a possible piece that the administration might consider in terms of how to place the kids. I mean, I think that's a major jigsaw puzzle, but it does kind of come to my mind, Clark, talking about renovating rooms for the purpose of science that are the two that are underutilized, that that might be putting our cart before our horse if fifth grade does end up needing to go to that building. Some underutilized classrooms might not maintain their current utilization, but might have to look completely different. We might want to renovate them to look like fifth grade classrooms instead of science rooms with big permanent lab tables in them. So just a thought I had. Not a thought I love, but a thought I had.
Do you guys want to explain about how differently Proposition 2 would be paid for, just for everyone? I think it's good.
So Proposition 2, which is structured to be up to $15 million, would be paid for with our capital reserve and cash on hand that we had originally contemplated during our May vote. And as we know, our capital reserve is fully funded, and we have, I believe, 3.6 of the additional 5 million already saved. So by the time we got to a place where we would be spending the money, we would have, I'm imagining we're going to have more than $15 million, but we've committed to $15 million to be set aside for this particular purpose.
So the voters are just approving it, they're not paying for that part.
We will not have to borrow any funds for this second proposition, if this is how the board decides to move forward.
This is just a quick one, but the acid waste lines was something that you guys added, and that's rather interesting sounding. Could you just elucidate what that is?
So as part of the science curriculum, they've used chemicals and things like that. We had included in the science classroom renovations replacing that acid piping within the room. So wherever the lab tables were to move, let's say, we would reroute to the existing mains. Kyle had brought up through this process that the mains themselves should be really replaced as well. So it was a separate line item we had been tracking. And it came back up as we went through this process. So we felt it was needed to be added back in to sort of continue that process of hitting the important pieces and not having to go back and do them again.
Could you just go into greater detail about the renovation of the 2 existing music rooms at Bennett?
Sure. I'll turn it over to you, but the 2 classrooms right now are what I call octagon or hexagon shaped. I think you see them on the plan. We're going to basically square those ends off so that they're a little bit more of a rectangular shape, and then deal with the acoustical treatment of the spaces internally. That will allow them to, I think, have a little bit more functional space at that point. And then it would be redoing finishes, redoing some casework, and redoing the mechanical systems in those spaces. I guess I got it.
Good job.
Hexagons. Sorry.
Great, thank you for that. Trustee Goodrich?
So I'm looking at the future phases here, and one of the things in the future phase was, of course, the artificial turf, which is it's a multi-use field. We can play many different sports. It's lined once for multiple sports. I assume it's going to be lined for field hockey and soccer, if we had it. Is that correct? So I'm looking at the Proposition 2, the second from the bottom line. We're doing grass sports fields improvements for soccer, drainage, which we've talked about, and also improvements for field hockey. Is some of this work not needed if we do the turf field later? I guess is my question.
I would say that it's still needed because all of the teams cannot practice on the turf field at the same time. They all need space to practice, and we have multiple levels of the teams. We don't often have modified JV and varsity, but we will often have modified and varsity. So we absolutely need all of the spaces that we have to be at their best level to support our athletes, because one really great field is not going to cut it.
And I'll just verify, that I think the biggest cost driver in that line item was we were trying to provide ADA access and parking to that upper field. So it's not just field improvement, it's access too.
And Tim, isn't it true that that the highest field in that level of 3 fields, the drainage is just not adequate to drain off? I believe that's the soccer field, and then there's the baseball or softball field and field hockey below. And when we have a heavy rain, the drainage that exists in that around that soccer field is not draining water off those fields. It's draining water onto the lower fields.
Right. So the softball is the uppermost field, and then there's a terrace down. The middle field is the soccer field, and then the lowest was the field hockey. Field hockey was taking a hit because it's the lowest. We added drainage in the outfield of the baseball and improved the field hockey, but now there's this break and slope that requires improvement in drainage between the baseball and the soccer. In our investigations, there's a very strange concept of drainage. They buried all structures and everything out there, like we discovered by cameraing lines that we found. So there's infrastructure there already to build off of. And I just think, you know, by improving as needed, and of course, like you mentioned before, the rain events are getting more intense and whatnot. And then we also, working with Kyle in our concept, providing ADA access and parking, an ADA walkway between the softball field and the soccer field, with a unique idea that Kyle had was to put concrete pads, and then during the season we could flip bleachers so you could watch the soccer during soccer. And so it's kind of a universal ADA accessible idea, but that's all baked in. CJ's shaking his head here as I'm pointing this stuff, but yeah, that's all baked into that line item.
That's great. I know that during our visioning sessions with the community, ADA access to those fields was really important to folks. Trustee Mitchell-Morrell, then Trustee Goodrich.
The field over the far field, like past the tennis courts, is that still going to be around, or do we have to like do something with that, like make that the drop-off loop? Isn't there a soccer field on the other side of Bennett?
Yeah, I think that's the one that Tim was talking
Yeah,
about.
that'll all stay. We're
Okay,
trying,
that's
this
staying.
bus
Okay,
loop
sweet.
will not infringe. It'll come very close to the lower field, but we try to preserve it.
I think the field, you know, like if you were on the primary playground that we just built a couple years ago, looking at the tennis courts from that part of the Bennett playground, there's the grassy field in front of the playground, between the playground and the parking lots. I think that will go, right? That will become the new drop-off loop.
And that's back to the original question, why is it so much? Because we have to convert a grass field to a parking lot with access and pavement and drainage and all that.
And not only the drop-off loop, right, but also the teacher and staff parking that will no longer be up behind the building.
Correct.
Any more questions on Prop 2?
I just want to say, I understand the thing with the 3 high school science classrooms. I think I brought this up a number of months ago, and the question, you know, how many science rooms do we really need for that size high school? So, and you're right. I mean, we have 3 high school science room renovations, plus the one that's already renovated, the chemistry, may be enough for what we need, given the significant drop in the number of high school students in recent years. So I guess that's a TBD, but I just ask. I know physics is tough because not many kids take it. They have senioritis, and it's in their science. You know, they're in their senior year, right? So it's a problem, right? A lot more kids, students take chemistry, and AP chemistry, but it's just timing. But then they get to senior and they go, yeah, I want to take it easy, right? So I really, truly understand that, but you need to take physics if you want to be an engineer.
Clark, I want to tell you a quick story. So my father was very supportive of me in general, academically, was proud of me, but I got through high school without taking physics, and he never let me hear the end of it. He said, how can you consider yourself an educated person? So freshman year of college, I took a course called Physics for Poets, because I was more of a musician and a poet than a physicist. And so I co-signed that everybody should take, and it was a great class. Everybody should take physics at some point. And I just wanted to quickly speak for the music room renovation. One of my joys of being a trustee is I have volunteered to accompany some of the choruses and music groups in all of our schools. And I've been in the Bennett music rooms, and today we had our tour of Woodstock. I was in the Woodstock music room, and they are functional rooms. They're nice size, but really, they all look like I imagine they must have looked in the 1970s. They are not upgraded in any significant way, and I think, given how important music is to this district, I'm very happy that the music room renovation at Bennett made it into Prop 2.
So shall we talk about finances?
Okay, let's talk money. So I had a conversation with Beth Ferguson, our fiscal advisors. Hold on, I gotta bring up too many tabs open. So in looking at the project, this would be Prop 2, where we'd be using the $15 million of cash and capital reserve. You can see I've got 3 rows. I've got the annual debt payment, annual projected state aid, and then annual projected savings. So in using the purely the cash, there's no debt payment, obviously, and we would be getting roughly $402,000 a year in state aid. I also didn't put any of the projected savings in that column. In the next column, which is I have 26.5, which is what it was on Friday. So, but I promise it won't change too much. We have a debt payment. We're looking at a debt payment of, at this point, a little over $2.4 million a year, with projected state aid of $687,600, plus the annual projected savings, and this was year 1, of $3.2 million. So adding those both together in the total column, you can see the annual debt payment is the $2.4 million, with the annual projected state aid is the combination of the 2 columns, so it's a little over $1 million, plus the annual projected savings of the $3.2 million, means that we will actually be reducing our budget by $1.8 million in year 1.
So our annual budget will decrease.
Correct.
Okay. Trustee Jerome? Okay.
I just want to be really clear. That will offset other increases in the annual budget. I don't want to say that our actual full annual budget will decrease.
No, just based on the project.
But the project will, the impact on the budget will be much less because we will have savings of almost $2 million because of this project. $3 million.
Trustee Jerome, then Trustee Goodrich.
So if Proposition 2 passes, it's neutral. Text, there's nothing happening.
Right.
Right? And then if Proposition 1 passes, then we see that there would be, as a school for the whole K through 5, rather than putting it in the high school, we would see that $1,800,090
Savings.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
So just what I heard here. So if Proposition 1 if Proposition 2 passes, we don't save the 1.8 million.
The
Right?
3.2, you mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't, yes, we won't, I mean, we could still, I mean,
Yeah.
the projected savings is the consolidation, so,
Right.
I mean,
You'll get some savings
You-
from
again.
Proposition 2.
you will get, yes, from Proposition 2, you won't see the savings as much as you'll see increased building aid if we do not consolidate right away. If we do the work in Prop 2, but we don't do an immediate consolidation, then we will see increase in building aid because we use the cash without
Okay.
having any additional expenses.
I got it, because we
Got
have
it?
the cash. Yeah,
Correct.
That makes sense.
Right.
So I'm surprised the state aid is so we've got a total here of 41,887,257, and you're saying the total state aid is
No,
only
annual state aid.
Oh, the annual.
That's
1
every
million.
year.
Every year, over how many years?
15, I believe she did.
15 years. Okay. All right, so that's about $15 million. Yep. Okay, and that's annual savings is used to pay off the bond as well. so,
Correct.
yeah. Oh, that makes more sense. Thank you.
And I just want to point out something that our perpetually conservative Assistant Superintendent for Finance is not highlighting, but it is an absolute fact, which is if the savings are 1.89 million in the first year, all those things we are not paying for anymore go up in price over the entire life of the bond. So those savings are not static. They go up incrementally unless we have deflation, which we've never had in my lifetime. And if we have deflation, we have a really big problem, so we don't want that. That savings amount goes up incrementally year after year after year. So by the time you get out to year 15, it's gonna. At some point, we will have fiscal advisors run these numbers, but we just don't have it for tonight.
Well, we don't because we really don't know what these are averages.
Averages.
Yeah. I mean, the average of like the first year, like, so the debt, and again, like you were saying, yes, the savings will incrementally go up, but the debt payment will stay the same.
Yes.
So that
Monica, could you
delta.
just explain what, when you said these are averages, what are averages?
So the debt payments and the projected state aid, they do fluctuate slightly, just based on, I don't even know what, but I can show you the spreadsheet, but that is, yeah, it's been a long day.
So if you're saying 2.4 million a year, it's not literally that every year. It's
It
a little more, a
is.
little
I mean,
less.
yeah, I mean, exactly. It's.
But it averages out over the life of the bond, over the life of the repayment
I mean,
plan.
I can.
You're going to have more details later that are going to be more finite, right?
I'm just curious, I don't remember, maybe somebody at the table does, when we received that spreadsheet from fiscal advisors that had like the 2 font, that you could not read even with a magnifying glass. When did we receive that prior to the board voting on the propositions? Or was it after? It was before. Okay.
it was
So will we receive that? Okay.
I actually have it.
Oh, good.
So I can share it. I can share it. I can share it now. I can send it to everybody. It's a little confusing to read, but I think Rick can probably understand it. Maybe better than me.
Is there a way that, I'm just remembering that on the original spreadsheet that we received from them, there was a column that was circled, so
Mhm.
that would be our.
That showed the nice negative number.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
there.
can you highlight that or something for us so that, and maybe just give us a little explanation of what we're looking at? Because
Sure.
it's been a while. Okay, thanks. Trustee Jared?
Assistant Superintendent Leclerc, your slideshow explaining equalization rate was so outstanding, and I might suggest perhaps something along those lines, maybe to explain like in reference to something that somebody like I would understand. Like in my house, I pay for heating. If I had two houses and then I sold one, I pay for heating in the first house, but how that savings grows, because I think that's what you're explaining, and you did such an amazing job with the tax rate one. I almost just want you to like do that for this, you know?
I can definitely give it my best shot.
Do we have any further questions for our team?
Thank you so much for your patience. I know you guys didn't run for the school board, but you're at every meeting.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, everybody. We appreciate
I'm
it.
sure we'll be speaking again soon.
Thank you all. Appreciate it. Have a great night.
You too. All right. So, where does our conversation go from here? I think I know that we did not discuss the future phase because it's a lot of the things that were in our visioning sessions and things that the community, parts of the community really want. And we heard loud and clear that we needed to come in at a lower price this time. So we're taking that very seriously and still developing a central campus that has an elementary school for all of our K-5 students. Trustee Jerome?
Yes, I think that we are all aligned as a board that we don't want to see our fifth graders in the middle school, high school. So the goal is to create a plan that will be adopted so that doesn't happen. And then in the future, I would love some of these things in a future phase to happen, but we're just trying to take care of what's right now.
Thank you. Trustee Mitchell-Morrell?
So there's still things that were on the original one that aren't part of any of this, right? And in theory, eventually we could still do those as well, even though we're not talking about them right now.
If we include the future phase as part of the conversation, and I know that there's a total on the future phase, but I feel like there are things on there that could be broken out and done separately. So
Wasn't there like nature trails or something like that? Did it happen to that? Yeah.
So off the top of my head, I don't have an exhaustive list, but obviously the full track replacement was in the original plan, has been replaced by the resurface, so that's a reason the number has come down. The other things I can remember are the counseling suites in the main office. Those could maybe go back on this at some point, go on the future phase. I think they fell off because they didn't get, when we all prioritized, they were very much at the bottom of the list in terms of essentials, what we have to have now. I can't remember, there might be one or two other things like that, but main office counseling suites and track replacement aren't on here that were in the original May proposition.
Trustee Mitchell-Morrell, are you thinking about the student commons, the outdoor classrooms? And I think it would be great at some point if the community would, be so gracious as to let us work on that outdoor space in between the two buildings. I also will say, though, and I don't say it enough out loud here, but the PTAs and the Booster Club are mighty, mighty, mighty things. And I was blessed enough to be on the Bennett PTA when we we did built an entire brand new garden at Bennett when Phoenicia had to close through fundraising. And I think that, and very generous community members who brought their own equipment, their own tools, their own know-how. And I have always thought that if that's something that the community can't find their way to supporting with tax dollars, I really feel like with a central campus, with all the parents focused together on this one place, I think that's something that PTAs and Booster could really pull together and do something magnificent, because the Bennett Garden is gorgeous. So,
Trustee Goodrich, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate, add to what Trustee Jerome said. This is, Proposition 1 gives us Bennett K through 5, which is really important. We really do need that. I don't want to go through the 5th grade into middle school. Try to avoid that, and I think this is a reasonable plan. It actually saves money. The Proposition 1 bond will be easily paid for by the savings with additional money left over. So it's a great plan. It's a win-win, and I think it's a good plan.
Thank you. Trustee Jerome?
I also want to just say that I have many ideas about how that savings could be used to enhance, expand, improve our programming for our students. So that will be part of my work and the rest of the board's work to make sure that we are saving this money. How can we improve student experience with this savings? We've proved that we can be responsible and look towards the future with fiscal responsibility, but I also really, really need to see that show up in this central campus in great ways for our students. And I know that my board and the administration is also aligned with that. So,
Thank you. Thanks for saying that. Trustee Knutson?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that so the bonded portion of the May proposition was 55.3? 55.5. And we're contemplating bonding a little under 27 million here, which is less than half the original amount that was to be bonded, which is, I think, something that hopefully our community will hear and see that we are responding to. Because I've said this a bunch of times, but I really think we all have to keep it in mind, is that we've had 3 very eventful, tumultuous years for our country, for school districts, for our state. 2023 was, the overall picture was very different in 2023, and there was a big change in 2024 with the governor's executive budget, and then this bill that passed on July 4th is another really big change in our country. It's a fundamental restructuring of the relationship between the federal government and the state government in terms of who pays for what, and all states, not just New York, are going to be burdened in ways they have not been, especially in the past few years, because in COVID, there was the American Rescue Plan, ARP, which Onteora and other districts was able to do a lot of great things with a lot of cash that went to school districts during COVID. And Onteora was very smart about how they spent it. They didn't start things that would have to keep burdening the budget after the ARP funding went away. But I believe, am I correct that sort of the initial ramp up of MTSS and branching minds was paid for by ARP money? And Assistant Superintendent Laffin told us in her academic report on the 30th that those programs are really helping our students and can really be identified as a source of some really great academic gains we had if you heard that report on the 30th. So I just wanted to say that, you know, as much as we are focused on our district and our locality, we always have to keep an eye on what's going on in the world. And there have been some big changes, and I really hope everybody has taken in what has changed in our country and the world.
So those of us on the audit committee, and I'm sure a lot of people out in the public are going to be asking this question. So we're going to save, I don't know, over $1 million every year if Proposition 1 and 2 pass. Where's that money going to go? Do we have to, as a board, vote on where it goes? How does it show up? Does it automatically reduce the tax levy? Lots of questions.
So that is a board decision. So what happens is that you are going to see a budget that's going to have increased revenue because of state aid, building aid. So our revenue will be going up. And then we will see the expenses now going down. So there's, obviously there's those expenses that we have to pay. We will have to pay health insurance. What is health insurance going to look like in 3 years? We don't know. Are we going to have a lot more retirees that we're going to end up paying for? We don't know. So there are a lot of unknowns. And then, the adjustment really comes with the tax levy. So if you decide, okay, no, we want to keep the budget low, we've got the additional building aid, so now our taxes can come down. Or you can say the tax cap is whatever the tax cap is, and we increase the budget because that's the tax cap. So really it's the board decides and the voters vote on the expenditure budget. But obviously we need to know what supports that expenditure budget, and it's aid and it's taxes. Does that make sense?
Can I just add to that, just so that it's really clear? The board's not going to say, okay, we have $1.8 million in savings. What are we going to do with it? The board's going to look at a budget each year and contemplate a tax cap, tax levy limit. I hate the word tax cap.
Thank you, both of you.
And just to add what I was saying before, by 2028, we will be 3 years into this reset of the federal government and the state governments, and that could have all kinds of consequences for our budgets. So I think, in a way, it's good to remember that these savings don't kick in until we actually do the work, consolidate the campus, and then whoever's on the board then, maybe us and maybe other people will make their best call.
Assistant Superintendent LeClaire, I just wanted to make sure that I can explain this. The savings, the projected annual savings is $3.2 million. Why it's $1.89 million annual savings is because for 20 years, we'll have a bond payment which will not fluctuate wildly. That will stay like a mortgage at a fixed rate. And so once that's paid off, the 1.89 is after we're paying that fixed rate.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Other questions, comments, concerns?
So the next step, Superintendent, if I'm correct, would be for these two propositions as they're laid out would be sent to our council to write up the propositions for the ballot?
That is correct. They will be sent to our bond council to create propositions that the board will then approve at our next meeting next week. And then the numbers, we will get the final numbers from fiscal advisors, so the board has that as well.
So am I correct then in thinking that we will round slightly to a $26.9 million Proposition 1 and then a $15 million Proposition 2?
I think that would be safe.
Okay. Much easier to play with.
Right. No voting. We'll vote, we'll be voting on the propositions at the next meeting.
I just wanted to remember what the district clerk asked me to mention tonight, and I believe it has to do with the fact that we will have to have a resolution on the next meeting allowing us to hold our voting on our vote date, which is December 10th, here in Boyceville, in the middle school, high school downstairs, in what we call the wrestling room. So it's the basement where the central administration door is as well. And it will work because we have a superintendent's conference day that day, so we can set aside ample parking. And we would like to hold the voting from 7 in the morning until 9 at night on that day. Only in one place, centrally located, but with greatly expanded hours and very accessible. So we can, those of us who work in central administration, we can park elsewhere that day. So all of the parking spots near that door can be available. If need be, we can have parking expanded, to allow for as many people as need to be there. We will have 2 active voting machines. We will also have a third that is ADA compliant, but that will only be used for those individuals who may need that particular type of machine. It's not a third machine that will be in the rotation, but we will also have 4 iPads for the for people who are checking in. So things should move smoothly. The Board of Elections feels that that is an appropriate number for us. So that resolution will also need to be on the agenda for next week.
All right, we have one more item on our agenda tonight, and it's a continued discussion of the resolution to establish a K-12 central campus by 2028. And that was the resolution that we laid on the table at the September 30th meeting. Trustee Jared.
Thank you. I hope everyone doesn't mind. I've been thinking a lot about this, as I'm sure all of us have been thinking. And my thinking has really evolved on it from where I was in the week leading up to the last full board meeting where we discussed it. And at that time, I sort of perceived this resolution as, are we choosing that 5th grade going to the middle school is a better scenario than the scenario that we have now? And that's sort of where I started with it. But since it's actually been very helpful, I think, to have all of these meetings in a row here in October, because it's really allowed me to keep hearing everybody and thinking about this. And where I really ended up in the last meeting was where I am now, which is that I feel that what this resolution begins to address, and this is just like where I'm starting from, is that it is a distinct possibility that 5th grade does go to the middle school, especially if the bond fails in December. And where I was before was sort of like, but I don't want to choose that, 5th grade going to the middle school. Where I am today is, if that is one of the most likely scenarios, and I think it is, then I don't want it to be an emergency, because what I heard from our administration in the last meeting was how thoughtfully sixth grade was integrated. I had children in the middle school at that time, and it really was so beautifully done. And I think that fifth grade going to the middle school is a very, very different, a horse of a different color. And I would want it to be a much longer runway than what we had for sixth grade going to the middle school, because we're not just talking about integrating another grade level into a hallway that had lots of room. I know that building, I know we all do, and they're, you know, I have very thoughtful parents who are like, okay, but tell me where are they gonna be? What's gonna happen? I think there's a lot of questions. I would want our administration to have a lot of time, so much time to speak to parents, to look at the building, to talk to administrators. So on the one hand, what I saw as sort of maybe forcing something to happen, I think I am now seeing, considering the date range that we're looking at, is hopeful, I think. I mean, if we haven't lost funding by the 2028, 2029 school year, I think it's short of a miracle. I guess my concern at this point would be if the bond fails and we do lose funding, you know, can we stick to this timeline? Like, you know what I mean? Because I mean that is now a question I'm asking, which is sort of the opposite question that I started with when I first looked at this. So in short, I am feeling that one thing this resolution does do that I feel is responsible is we heard that we need to tell the administration this is the direction that we want you to go in before they invest an enormous amount of time and resources of educators and administrators into solving this brand new idea. And I don't think a year is enough time for them to do that. So this, in essence, if the bond fails in December, gives us a chance at a very responsible process. The other thing I want to say about this is, you know, we've had tours at Bennett and at Woodstock now, and I love both of those buildings. I've had children in both of those buildings. The principals are unbelievable. The teachers are phenomenal. They are both full of amazing artwork and learning, and they are both half empty at least. And I can't not say that out loud. Both of them. There were such small class sizes at Woodstock today. I asked the principal if there was like a flu going around because I didn't want to assume that that was what it normally looked like, because I would not, at this point, I don't want to make any assumptions. And the answer was like, no, we have like amazing attendance right now. And those buildings are really empty. So, you know, educationally, it's better if all of our kids are together. I mean, those class sizes are not big enough. They don't have enough of a cohort there together. We know it's better for our special needs kids. We know it's better for our music programs. We know we could have after school enrichment. We know that's better for kids. We know that's better for parents. It's fiscally better. With busing, there's no change, and for some, it's better. So I'm asking myself, what is the trade-off that I would make? Is it hoping to keep Woodstock open just a little longer, you know? And I thought to myself, like, is that worth it? You know, because they're very passionate community members and I feel for them. And I guess where I came to there was, if it was only Woodstock and West Hurley kids that this would impact, I might consider that, because I hear them saying, we'll take the brunt of it, you know? But my problem is, it's not. It's fifth grade from our entire district in perpetuity, you know? And it's not just the fifth grade kids that live in a particular area that would be moved into the middle school in possibly a very short time frame. And I can't find myself to justifying putting all of the children in that kind of suboptimal transition in order to try and prolong, one area's access to a school. That's where I'm at.
Thank you. Trustee Goodrich?
I think what scared me about the resolution is I felt that if we don't get this Proposition 1 passed in December, then we're locked into having to do the 5th grade into middle school without knowing, or like Trustee Jarrett said, giving the administration enough runway to actually come up with a plan and make sure it's going to be a good plan, right? I don't want to ask the superintendent and the administrators and the principals to go do something and then we find out you're going to fail. I don't want you to fail. And I think you need more time, like Trustee Jarrett said, right? And what you said also, I think. We want to make sure we have a good plan. And the space, at a high level, it looks like it may be doable, but, give it some time. And, that would be good, right? To make sure we got all our I's dotted and our T's crossed. And I think Trustee Knudsen has a name for that. Dot and tittle, is that what it is? Yeah. So, I felt like I was forced into it. I mean, if we want to make an aspirational resolution that says, hey, this is what we plan to do, if Proposition 1 fails, then we plan on taking a serious look at the middle school for 5th grade. Maybe that's a plan. But to be lockstep and say, we're going to submit something to New York State Ed that says it's going to close in 2028, I was like, that scared me.
Just to clarify, we wouldn't submit to state ed until the March before the closure. So it's literally, if our goal is to consolidate by the 28-29 school year, we would not submit to state ed until March of 28. So I think we would have plenty of time to work through the planning process if that is where we were headed for the 28-29 school year.
Trustee Jerome and then Trustee Jared.
I have to be honest, I find this a distraction for me personally. I don't really like it. The timeline I've had issues from the very beginning. I have said, and I continue to say as a board, I feel that we're all very aligned right now in the path that we're taking. I think that everybody is really beginning to really grasp this idea that 5th grade, without these bonds passing, could be absorbed into the middle school. Nobody's happy about that. But it seems, I think there was a vote a couple of years ago that talked about something like this, and somebody has to tell me why this is important right now when we're trying to put together 2 propositions for a vote on December 10th or 11th, whatever we said. Like, that to me should be the main focus, and this is a distraction. That's how I put it. And I do say that with respect for my fellow trustees. I'm sorry if my tone seems edgy.
So here's what I see as part of the problem is how voters get their information in our district or don't get their information in our district. And I think, we've had some really great conversations, very transparent and open conversations about everything we're facing, everything we're thinking, what we're trying to do here. I looked, so we had roughly 2,600 people voted, 2,500, 2,600 voted in the last election. And I just looked on YouTube at our view counts for our meetings this year. July had 206. The second one in July had 77. The next one in August had 84. Our mid-September meeting had 116. The unfortunate but inescapable reality is that when we had our proposition in May, very many people in this district got their information not from us, but from road signs, billboards, banners, other sources that confused the message, confused what was going on. And we've been getting emails to this week, just misunderstanding what was on the ballot in May. And so, to me, that aspirational aspect to the 23 resolution is what opened the door to people being confused about what they were voting for. And just to step back for a minute, to echo what Trustee Jared was saying before, when I sit down as a trustee, when I try to make a decision about what policy I think would be best for the students of this district and the taxpayers, I have a series of rubrics and metrics that I'm looking at. And on the question of centralization, there's the academic benefits to the students. I'm convinced that the central campus has the most academic benefits. There is the fiscal sustainability of the district's budget for the taxpayers into the future. When I look at that, I think that's a very clear decision. Then there's the voters. Voter intent. I've spoken on that before. I'm not going to rehash it here, but I think a small but clear majority of the voters have told us in the last couple of elections that they want us to centralize the campus. And then also what I talked about in terms of last week about our, the contradiction between the property wealth we live among and the fact that half our families are economically disadvantaged, and all the benefits that would come to those folks, A, from keeping the tax levy under control, and B, being able to provide more service in terms of after-school childcare, things like that. And so, and then of course, when you're talking about closing a community school, there are equities pointing the other way, absolutely. It's a loss to the community. We've talked about this many times. When I look at the scales, to me, I'm on this board to make my best judgments about what will benefit the students and the taxpayers of this district. And if I am in that position of responsibility, and I've taken on that responsibility by accepting the role of trustee, I have a responsibility to act on that. And especially if I know that, from experience, that once the bond is up for a vote, if there's ambiguity, it's going to be very confused. The public discourse is going to be very confused, I believe. So that's what I think the value of it is.
Trustee Jerome, and then back to Trustee Jared if you still have. Oh, okay. Okay.
So nothing that you said right there has anything to do with adopting a resolution to me. And I would say that my experience, again, I've served on a few public boards, and surveys, resolutions, like we had a resolution in 2022, 3, whatever it was, they don't matter. I think that sometimes there's the misconception that if we do this, everybody will know and it will make sense to everybody. And I just don't think that that's the case. I think we just continue doing our good work and get the propositions to go forward. You don't have to extol the benefits of the central campus. I see them. We all see them here, right? I don't think this will help prove them to anybody. In fact, I see that it might put up a barrier, right? Because I just don't know why we're doing this right now. And I won't say anything else about it, but I understand all the things you said, but I'm just talking about this resolution.
I think the resolution, for me, the resolution clarifies for the voters that we, as a board, agree that we are moving forward to a central campus by September 2028. That it doesn't put the onus of this decision on the voters. It puts the onus of this decision on the board. We faced a very strong and moneyed opposition in May, and they have spoken quite clearly, I think, to us in at least at our September 30th meeting, that they will vote no on any proposition that we put up that has an addition to Bennett that includes Woodstock K-5 students. I feel like if we wait and see whether they're really going to vote no on a proposition that would really impact all the K-5 students in the district, even theirs, that means that we have to wait another year to put up a bond and consider a capital project. And that is a year that we may lose significant funding and end up having to move Woodstock K-5 students to Boyceville without any improvements. And so that's really what that proposition means to me. I mean, that resolution means to me. It means that we're making a decision. We are not using aspirational language. We are using very straightforward language and saying, Woodstock has to close. Now, it's our job to see to it that we can build a beautiful central campus. And it's going to be done in phases. It's not going to be done, the way the community, or some of the community, had hoped that it would be done. But it will be done in a very, very good way for our K-5 students. That hopefully will not mean that our 5th grade has to go to the middle school, high school. So that's what it means to me. I think that, to me, like, just putting it in a nutshell, the onus of that decision falls on the Board of Education, not on the voters. The voters get to vote on the bond, but we have to make the decision, which I think we thought we were making in '23, but we weren't. Trustee Jared, then Trustee Mitchell-Morrell.
I really appreciate this conversation and the space for this conversation. I really do. I wanted to start just by, actually, I don't think I might not need to clarify if I back up a little, which is to say, I think the question is that Trustee Jerome is asking, what is the problem that this resolution is attempting to solve for? And I think that might be a step in the discussion that we skipped, just because for a multitude of reasons, mostly that we're human. So I think what I hear is the problem I hear from Trustee Knutson and Trustee Bishop is that if there is the ability for there to be a misunderstanding, either just out of it's so much to keep track of as a human being, or on purpose, that folks think that voting down expanding Bennett to keep K-5 together means that Woodstock will stay open. And I just have to say that I don't think we're all on the same page. And I think that we know that the 2023 resolution didn't do that. It didn't do that. And it's okay to say that out loud. You know, the resolution in 2023 said that it was pending a vote on a capital improvement. And that was true. And then, so when folks said, we can't centralize without the capital improvement vote no on the capital improvement, they weren't wrong, except that I disagree, Trustee Bishop, that it's our choice. I think we're lucky if it's our choice. I mean, if we can try and choose the best thing, we're lucky. I actually think, I think I might be the most pessimistic, financially pessimistic board member. I'm coming for you, Trustee Knudsen. I think that we are about to not get to choose. I think that's where I differ a little bit. And I think this I would like to clarify, Trustee Goodrich, and I know Guy went on, and it was probably very hard to understand everything I was trying to say. So I just want to make it crystal clear. My understanding is that if 5th grade needs to go to the middle school, when we decide that as a board, this is a path that is going to happen, then the clock starts and then the work starts to happen. So my fear, and it is a fear at this point, is that because I love a lot of people that really don't want me to vote to close Woodstock, and I have to see them, and I look forward to seeing them, and it would not be good for my social life to do that. And I would like for everybody in Woodstock to feel really happy and to be there for another year. We don't start the clock. And then Kathy Hochul adjusts the budget. And then that's on me. That was a whole year that our administration could have been coming up, as you said, Trustee Goodrich, with a very intricate plan to do something that is not as simple as moving 6th grade to the middle school. And just this afternoon, Trustee Smith shared an article with me, which you can look up online. It was written by a local Crispin Cott, and it's about the New Paltz School District. And I sat down here and looked at it, and they have to do it. They have to do it. They are now at that point that I don't want us to be at. They have a $2.5 million budget deficit. They have to phase one school to K4 and 5th grade up to the middle school, and 5th grade's going to the middle school before the summer of 2027, it said most likely, and it's still not going to address their budget deficit. Reading that, I was like, oh, this, we have a normalcy bias. We saw it in the pandemic. I have a husband who's a prepper. I know this is TMI, but he told everybody, there is a pandemic coming. Buy masks, buy cans of things, and every single family member and neighbor looked at us like we were insane, like we were out of our minds. We want to believe the aid will stay. We want to believe everything will be fine, and I'm afraid that we are rearranging deck chairs a little bit and that we're going to hit the iceberg, and I really just have to say, that's, I think, what we're doing. I can't believe that we think that a 2% tax cap raise every year is going to keep this train running with everything that's going on and with the astronomical rise in pricing of everything and our neighbors crying, uncle, literally uncle. Like, you cannot raise my tax anymore. I cannot live here, uncle. I really think we're there. And so I know none of us want to talk about that. But I don't think that we are going to get to make the decision if we don't really get into a serious discussion about what is the most likely outcome here.
So funny. I was like the opposite with the pandemic. I was like out to dinner on March 13th. Okay. So I just wanted to say, I think I understand why we want to do the resolution. I felt like it makes this specific resolution really riles up maybe the crowd you kind of don't want to rile up and makes things very contentious. The age-old story of hitting against each other. Like, I think the thing we're trying to make clear is if it passes, the 5th grade gets to stay in the elementary school altogether. If it doesn't pass, 5th grade moves to the middle school. Like, actually, I feel like that's more what we're trying to get across. Like, these are the two options at this point, more than positioning it like making it about closing Woodstock, when you can make it about this other thing that I think will be a more peaceful way to put it, and is also the reality that's what we need people to understand more.
I agree with you. And I also agree with Trustee Jared. All good stuff. I feel like it's taken this resolution's taken the oxygen out of the air. And what we really need to do is try to sell Proposition 1, Proposition 2. Proposition 1's going to be harder to sell. And we need to figure out how to sell that, right? A lot of people put up banners about a building, save the building. This is about support Onteora students. I'll repeat that, support Onteora students. If you can come up with a better saying between now and the next meeting, let's do it. But let's come up with a saying, and we just say it over and over, because this is about the students, right? This is about not only the current students, but also the future students, and providing more opportunities to them. Simple statements. If we come up with 3 bullets, just one-liners, nothing complicated, stuff that people can remember, stuff that people hear over and over and over, and that they can remember so they can tell their neighbors. Real simple.
Just want to elaborate.
Thank
sorry,
you.
'cause we're talking about the same thing.
Go
just
ahead,
like
Emily.
kind of like, this is what happens if it passes. This is what happens if it doesn't pass. Like, literally so clear, because like I feel like I didn't personally understand that until the last meeting, especially about the 5th grade thing. And like, these are our 2 options at this point. Like, I just think that's sort of the messaging we need to be more on than this resolution, especially because it's almost a more positive way to put it, where it's like, well, we're all doing this, but it can go this way or this way, you know?
Trustee Smith?
My thought on the resolution is not a negative one. It was really concerning to me how unclear people were for the May vote, and there's still a lot of that out there right now. People really need to know, without a doubt, what they're going to the polls to vote for, and I think it's our job as a board to do that for them. I don't look at it as a bad thing or a negative thing. It just states the direction we're headed. And kind of gives it clarity to those that might be swayed otherwise. And I think there's a lot of that out there, more than we'd like to admit. And it's really working against us. And as far as selling the proposition, I think that the resolution would help do that. I think it would be very clear to say, this is what, this is what the bond is. The school's going to close, and it's okay. But the bond is for the upgrades, and there's a lot riding on it for the kids. We can't afford to have something out there that doesn't specify that, the school is still going to close by this date. And this is what the bond is for. The bond is not for keeping the school open. And I just think that needs to be said, and not in a negative way. It's not trying to be malicious. It's not trying to be underhanded. It just is to really clarify and help the public see this is what's happening right now. And it's unfortunate, but we're not the only ones. There's a lot of other districts out there going through the same stuff, and it's really sad. And I wish there were kids, busting out of the schools everywhere, but it's just not that way. And I think it's up to us to finally make a stand and do the right thing. And I think the resolution helps us to do that. So, thank you.
Trustee Jerome, then Trustee Knutson.
So, thank you. I hear that. I really like the idea. So, I have a couple questions about this resolution. Like, I'm moving beyond like being completely opposed to a resolution to like what would it look like if we reframed the resolution, much in the same way as we came up with a better plan for our propositions. I really appreciate what you were saying, Trustee Mitchell-Morrell, in terms of we've had this message that people are so resistant to, and it just gets my cackles up immediately when it's all about closing Woodstock, right? And reframing it just in this way that says it's actually about supporting the students of Onteora and making sure that our 5th grade doesn't go into these. I feel like that's every bit as much true. It's something that resonates with everybody in the district rather than just a portion of a district. And so I would be open to like rethinking the content of this particular resolution. Also, I just have a question as I start to look at it, to be frank, again, I said it's sort of like every time I looked at it, I was just like, didn't we do this already? But now I'm understanding through everybody's explanation the purpose, and I'm just wondering why it's such a long legalese resolution. And that is another thing that's super off-putting to me. And I, as a board member, don't understand why it's a long legalese resolution. So maybe if I understood, I could accept it more easily. But when I start to read like whereas, and all these things that I've heard since I've been on the board, never feeling like we're making any, like just these reminders that either make some people say, yeah, and other people say, yeah, like why are we going through them again? And so if you could help me understand, that would be helpful.
Yeah, so my understanding of why all the whereas, it's really just a recap of the process so far as sort of a basis for the resolution, presenting to the public what the bases are for the decision, so that the public can understand and SED can understand what we're considering in doing this. But I just wanted to go back to one thing, which is, it's funny because, when you say we're at a fork in the road, right, and we're either expanding Bennett for a K-5 or 5th grade is going to the middle school, that's basically what this resolution says in different words. But in either case, we are going to one elementary school, which is Bennett. And so I just don't, that's sort of a nitty-gritty aspect of it that I don't think there's any way for us to tiptoe around or dress up in nicer language. I think that's going to be received, how it's going to be received. And I think at this point, as with Trustee Jarrett pointed out, that we are just short on time, that the crisis is here. I believe that. That trying to sell it by tiptoeing around that very hard decision that is our responsibility. To me, it's not, it's about whether it's our choice. It is our responsibility as trustees to set the direction of this district at a crossroads. And I truly believe the district's at a crossroads. So I just don't know that, reframing it will ever eliminate that basic binary, and the binary is whether we're going to have one elementary school or two.
Trustee Jerome?
Well, certainly I'm not suggesting that we dress anything up. Okay? And when Emily talked to me, you and I take different positions on this point. When she spoke to me about reframing it, it immediately made me more receptive. And I'm speaking from the other side. So pay attention to that too. You know, there are many people in this district who might take a different approach. You say it's binary. People are not binary. They're emotional. They're messy. This is important. It's important that we speak to them in a way that they hear. So I just want to say that.
Apologies if I implied that people are binary. That's not what I meant. What I meant was that the outcome, the material outcome, is going to be binary, and dress up was a very unfortunate choice of words, and I apologize, but I think the words can't hide.
Certainly not. Yeah. And I agree. And I understand. You're right. You did make that distinction. And I agree. It is, that is the outcome. I think that people understand that. But I do think it's how you approach them with that fact.
I just want to address the language of the resolution, and we always send an idea to the attorneys, and then they are really protecting the board by writing it the way that it's written. And I know it's very, you know, legalese and all the whereases and all that stuff, but it has to kind of set the stage. The way that a resolution is written is it's setting the stage for, you know, the final statement. And this one is taking into consideration everything we've done over the course of time, which seems very redundant, especially to people who believe that the 2023 resolution said we're closing Woodstock by 2028. I think this one was really written to clarify that outcome. You know, that this is what we have to do, and hopefully the community will get behind us, and the students, the K-5 students especially, and I know that there are high school students involved too in our science classrooms and other upgrades, but that it's very important to us as a board, or very important to me as a trustee, that we do have a K-5 elementary school to send our kids to. Trustee Goodrich, then Trustee Jerome, Jared.
Yeah, I didn't, you know, I'm not a lawyer, but I didn't find the 2023 resolution or this resolution that hard to follow. I liked all the words that were in there. I'm just going to make a joke here. Not near as complicated as a mainframe principle of operations hardware book. That's that thick. Every word matters in that book. You would not believe how hard that is to write that stuff. But anyway, I'll digress. But anyway, I just felt that this resolution was incomplete. And from a legal point of view, I think we do need to add to it and mention something about, you know, we want to have a K through 5 elementary school, and that requires capital improvement, and if that fails to pass the voters, then we will be forced into putting 5th grade into the middle school and have Bennett be a K through 4. That somehow that needs to be put in the resolution, otherwise I feel like we're going to be subject to a lawsuit. That's my gut feel. I'm not a lawyer, but I want to protect us. If you pass this thing, I want to make sure there's something in there, because we've heard from, you know, a few of the trustees tonight, including myself. I feel the same way. We need to talk about the middle school as a potential possibility if we do not get the funds to make Bennett into a K through 5. And I'd like to avoid that if we could.
Trustee Jared.
Thank you. Again, this is not easy to do, knowing, I don't mean for myself, I mean for everybody up here, knowing there's YouTube running for all perpetuity. And I just want to thank everybody up here for being so authentic, and it is really inspiring. Trustee Goodrich and I had been scribbling in the margin of my paper kind of exactly what you had just said, because what Trustee Mitchell-Morell and Trustee Jerome said really resonated with me. I mean, we've done some reframing, with our wording on the back end, and sometimes it's really helpful. And I am wondering if the whereas paragraph, the very last one, which was the one that caught me up on the last meeting where we discussed this, where it said that we had discussed grade reconfiguration, and I felt, and I think many of us felt like we hadn't really done that. But now I feel like I understand how far we can get with that without making a decision. So I wonder if that paragraph isn't really inviting the addition of that language that everybody is feeling is very clarifying and vital for understanding around what the stakes are. Maybe just adding that into that where we discuss grade reconfiguration.
I mean, I think some of us feel like we can't vote on this specific resolution. And I think we could vote on something that was clearer about those two options I mentioned earlier. And I think you sort of should trust us because we are the demographic and this is where we come from. And I think that this is not it, and I just, all I can do is warn you, but I just think this isn't going to have the desired effect.
I don't think there's any reason why we shouldn't consider it. I would be happy to reach out to our attorney and ask him to include, this language in the resolution. I would say as long as it doesn't change the end result, which is sort of, I feel like, our springboard to move into action and direct the administration to do the same thing.
I mean, I wonder if you could also simplify the language a little, or shorten it. I just feel like by the time people are getting to paragraph 9, I don't know who's reading it. Like if we could shorten it a little to 1 page or something, that might go a long way. I don't know. I just don't know. Like, I'm on the board, but if I wasn't on the board, I would probably never read this. Like, I don't know. It's like it does need to be very readable, or we need to have another document that's very easy to understand and readable.
Yeah, we could ask for a summary.
I like your idea of maybe just if there is one key whereas that we could maybe pull out. You have the long, people will have access to the long form, but to have a short form that really lays it out that we can all agree on, that might be an idea. And I also just wanted to say again, in the same vein as you, I am so grateful for our entire board and our administration, and that we're having this conversation. So even if I get snippy, I really appreciate. Okay.
So I think to try to be fully transparent with everybody in the district, we do need to let them know that we're looking at, we may be forced into putting 5th grade in the middle school. We don't want to, and we need to tell them that. And that needs to be out there. To hide that, I think, is not being transparent. Unfortunately, some people may like that option and actually vote Proposition 1 down, and that would be unfortunate, but and that's maybe why we didn't want to talk about it. But I'll be honest, I didn't really want to bring it up. I didn't want to have to go there. That's why I was, probably 2 meetings ago, I was so frustrated. I really didn't want to go there. I wanted to just focus on these Proposition 1 and 2s that we have tonight, which are great, and I think they're going to be the best for the students.
I just want to keep an eye on the time. I know that last time we went way over and people had to rush out of here to get home by bedtime. We will have an opportunity to discuss this further at the next meeting. I can,
Timeline. We don't need this approved before, like, we have to get the propositions. That has a very strict timeline. This less so, correct?
That's a political judgment, I would say. But yeah, but in terms of
Literal
in terms of
thing,
noticing for the
this really
vote,
has-
the
propositions
propositions
have
are
to-
yes.
that's true.
Um,
We have to, the propositions have to be voted on next meeting, for sure. I think to move forward with the bond vote, we have to seriously consider this resolution. And I appreciate the conversation. I really appreciate the conversation. I appreciate every single one of you so much. I feel like, oh my God, I feel like we've grown leaps and bounds in this month, in just this past month. It's really amazing.
Maybe we should keep meeting every week.
Oh, that's so funny.
But I think this is why, and now I understand why, sometimes boards do have one meeting just to talk about things and one business meeting. And I think it requires a lot of planning and homework and the ability to not have things come up that absolutely have to be approved. But I appreciate the conversation that I have been witnessing, and I've tried to sort of take a step back because it's really important for all of the board members to move forward together, and you have all done incredible work and had such productive dialogue. But now I sort of understand why some districts do that.
I think the discussion meeting is really nice because it just takes the pressure off. I'm not like, when are we voting? Who's voting? And it's just, that's such a nice part about it where we really are just talking. And yeah, I mean, that is a nice format, 1-on-1, if that's ever possible.
So just a second, I totally endorse. I think discussion meetings should be there at least a couple every year. It would be great board hygiene for the Onteora board. I'm going to do something really stupid because I'm not a lawyer, but I just had an idea, and I'll throw it out, and the lawyers will bat it down. But I thought maybe in the direction of what we've been talking about, the second to last whereas paragraph, where it says creating a K-12 campus in Boyceville, you could put in a a comma there, and then either with a K-5 district-wide Bennett or a K-4 district-wide Bennett and 5-8 middle school. In other words, specify what the options for a K-12 campus are.
Just generally with the resolution, sorry, can I talk? Is that I just want to like bury the lead. I feel like a lot of things are getting buried in here, and it's like reviewing and going this and this. And it's like that is the lead, in my opinion, the K through 5 thing. So it's like if we can even get that in there more than once, or as like the first part, like I just don't want it to be buried in like paragraph 8, because again, not that many people are gonna really read this.
So here's a suggestion, and I don't know what the attorneys will say, but instead of calling it the resolution to establish a K-12 central campus by 2028, maybe it could be called a resolution to establish a K-5 elementary school or a 5-8 middle school on a central campus by 2028, because it's right there on the top line. And then, it's sort of like a teaser. You have to read to the end to find out, what the gist is.
I think this is so on the right track. And something I just wanted to add in is about not burying the lead is, I see throughout, it's like because the board has assessed that X is maybe throughout the paragraphs, we can say something like, because the board has decided that K-5 is the optimal elementary configuration for Onteora. The capital project at Bennett, is created to keep K-5 together, and the part that talks about us losing foundation aid and all of that, maybe that could have a piece that clarifies loss of which might very well likely result in a K2 4, 5 to 8 configurement. You know what I mean? Maybe throughout we can kind of lay in that is where our focus is, because that is clearly where our focus is.
So what I just heard from the last two trustees is really important. And whenever you're writing an article, your first sentence, your first paragraph is really important. Well, this first paragraph in this resolution needs improvement. That's all I'll say. You got to get to the point what we're doing here in this first paragraph. So that's my suggestion. But goes along with what, Trustee Bishop said. Try to get it up front. Maybe we can do the last two paragraphs first. I don't know. But, the last two, whatever we need to do, we got to get that up front.
And I totally get why you put it in, but I would take out all these bullets. I just am like, we get it, and the people you're trying to talk to don't want to hear about that anymore.
Yeah, it's but the lawyers really control this process. It's the lawyers, and yeah,
It's really. I'm just going to say it. It's written this way because it's legally defensible, and that's the truth. It's because this will be the cover page of our response to any appeal that comes our way, and that's why they write them that way. I mean, but we'll work together tomorrow on trying to put all this together and send something off to our attorney.
So before you send it to the attorney, should we look at it? Or I just felt like also that was kind of my issue with this is I feel like someone brought it up and then the next day it was whereas, and I was like, wait, what? So I would love to be a little more part of that process. I don't know if we could do the Google Doc thing again or just, I don't know, it doesn't have to go straight from you to the lawyer. I feel like we should get to look at it in between.
I mean, we can take a stab at it. I'm going to say I'm absolutely not the person to try to write a
Sorry,
legal,
so what would
legal
be the
document.
process? It goes straight to the lawyer? I don't know. I'm still don't get
We
how this
we
happens.
would send him the information that we've just gathered, and ask him to make some changes. Yeah, yeah.
and we would communicate to him, this is what we want this resolution to say, and it would be based on this conversation we just had.
We would also direct him to the YouTube video.
That's what I was just going to
Start watching at point A, and of course, everyone has YouTube. Yeah, no, he would not write a word without watching all of this whole discussion. Are we good? So, okay, I have one thing that I want to bring up, and I'm so glad somebody mentioned that we got a lot of emails, because we've gotten a lot of emails from the community. And I am really struggling again, like I did the last time we got a lot of emails from the community, with how to respond to them. You know, not that I can't respond to them, but they're so different and varied. So I was wondering if maybe we could kind of, if a few people would agree to help me with the responses, maybe we could divvy them up and do it the same way that we normally do, where I write a draft, I send it off to all of you, you send me revisions and things like that, and then we finally agree on something. So what are your thoughts about that?
I'm happy to be on the email committee. I'm the best email writer of all time. And I also was going to say, I think one way to do it is kind of be like, we heard you, we took everyone into consideration, and this is what we've decided to do. Like, kind of just be like, okay, like, this is what we're doing now, because we did. That is what happened, like, and here are the propositions, and here's what's going on with the resolution. Like, sort of just an update almost, because that's where this is headed, kind of. And, like, we took that into consideration, and we are moving forward, and here's where we are right now.
I love that idea, Trustee Mitchell Morrell. You're on fire tonight. I love it. Could I recommend, because the email inbox becomes something, that perhaps our lovely clerk would make like an Excel spreadsheet as emails come in with the sender and the date, and then members of the email committee, of which I'm happy to help out, could pop in there, put their name next to the name of the person they're going to write a response to, and then track, email draft for approval, and then, somebody could write when it's been approved, email sent, because that way we're not all like scrolling backwards. And maybe once we are super efficient and one of us just sees it and responds, I got this one, we won't need the Excel spreadsheet, but probably for the backlog, because thank you everybody for being so much in contact. We have a backlog. Maybe the Excel would help us not miss anybody.
I think I think we'll have to draft a plan before we can draft an email. And but I think if we were considering writing a response to all of the emails, no matter what they say, that, we've got your email, we appreciate hearing from you, this is what we've decided to do. If we're going to go with Emily's idea, then I think it really could be one basic email responding to everyone, whether they're saying, we hate everything you've said, or we love everything you've said, or I can't believe you're ignoring what I want you to do, no matter what it is. Emily?
And I think so many of the emails we get are from like pillars of the community who are very strong leaders, probably a lot of them, because they're following this and they care and whatever. That's who we need to get this message to the most. So this is such a good opportunity to communicate directly with these people, not reply all, like reply just to them and say exactly what we want to say, no whereas anywhere in there, but just, exactly what we want to say. These are our propositions. This is what happens if it passes. This is what happens if it doesn't pass. Like, spread the word.
Jenny?
Yeah, I was just going to agree. I do think that personalizing them to some extent would be helpful, but I like the idea that at the end of like, thank you, here's a chart, because sometimes that's great. Like, thank you for that. Here is the chart of what the thing is. And then ending all the emails with, here's what we're doing. What a great way to like keep communicating what's actually going on. But I do think maybe some of them do need some, I don't know, maybe they don't, specific personalized.
I just want to take the opportunity to say that we really appreciate hearing from the community in any way that they want to communicate with us, including their emails. We have not forgotten to respond to your emails. I am just feeling a little overwhelmed by them, and that's a good thing. It's a good overwhelm. Trustee Jerome?
I do think that a combined approach where, sometimes we get wonderfully detailed emails. We wouldn't be able to respond in kind, but always to address the content of the email that we've received, I think is appropriate in a couple of sentences, and then to have the information that we are trying to communicate. I do think it's another opportunity. So maybe we could talk about it at the communications meeting too, like just a framework for doing that.
That's a great idea. Okay. Anything else?
I love the emails, and I just want to remind the public, the board makes the decisions here. And we ask the superintendent to implement them. So I would appreciate if they would stop having negative comments towards our superintendent.
Hear, hear. All right. May I have a motion to adjourn? Trustee Jerome, second. Trustee Knutson, all in favor? Okay, see you next Tuesday.